At Marcus's birthday dinner, Serena mocked my concerns about the boys. "You're just an old-fashioned worrywart, Eleanor," she sneered. Marcus agreeing. My heart shattered, but I simply nodded. They didn't know I was already watching. What I found next would turn their world upside down. Listen to my story, like, share, and tell me where you're watching from. Eleanor drove to Carlos's Shine and Clean car wash with a familiar sense of duty mixed with a flicker of annoyance. It was a humid Tuesday afternoon, the kind where the air hung heavy and thick. The aroma of citrus-scented soap mingled with the faint, comforting smell of engine oil that always seemed to cling to the place. This errand, picking up Serena's freshly detailed SUV, was just another task in her seemingly endless list of responsibilities that often revolved around her son Marcus and his wife. As she pulled into the lot, Carlos, a man whose face was a roadmap of cheerful wrinkles and decades of hard work, waved her over. He had been cleaning cars in this town for as long as Eleanor could remember, a trusted acquaintance who always had a joke or a friendly word. Today, however, his usual jovial expression was replaced by a taut, visibly nervous frown. His eyes, usually twinkling, darted around the lot before settling on Eleanor with an unusual intensity. An immediate knot tightened in Eleanor's stomach. Carlos wasn't just beckoning her, he seemed to be signaling a distress call. He ushered her away from the bustling bays, past the clanging of tools and the hiss of pressure washers, into a quieter corner near his small, cluttered office. He kept his voice low, almost a whisper, despite the ambient noise. "Eleanor," he began, his brow furrowed with genuine concern, "I found something in Serena's car, in the glove compartment. Something disturbing." Her heart quickened, a cold dread washing over her. What could it be? She ran through a mental list of possibilities, none of which seemed to fit Carlos's grave demeanor. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small, translucent plastic bag. Inside, nestled among what looked like car registration papers, was a small orange prescription bottle. He handed it to her, his hand trembling slightly. Eleanor took the bottle, her fingers brushing against the cool plastic. The label bore Serena's name, clear and stark: Clonazepam. Her mind immediately registered the drug, a powerful sedative and anti-anxiety medication. What truly sent a jolt of alarm through her was the level of the pills in it. The bottle, she noticed from the pharmacy sticker, had been filled only 3 days prior, yet it was nearly empty. Her gaze shot back to Carlos, her unspoken question hanging in the air. This wasn't right, not for a prescription that should last a month. Carlos then withdrew a stack of glossy photographs from the same plastic bag. These weren't happy snapshots. They were clinical, unsettling images. Eleanor gasped, her breath catching in her throat. The pictures showed Ethan and Leo, her 2 grandsons, sleeping. But it wasn't the peaceful, innocent slumber of children. Their bodies were unnaturally still, their limbs sometimes arranged at odd, awkward angles, their faces pale and slack. They looked profoundly drugged, far beyond mere tiredness. The sight of her precious grandsons, so vulnerable, captured in such a disturbing state, made the world tilt on its axis. Just as Eleanor's mind reeled from the shocking images, Carlos unfolded a piece of paper he had retrieved from the bag. It was a handwritten schedule, neat and precise, detailing the boys' routines. Bedtime at 7 p.m., nap time at 2 p.m. for Leo, a longer nap for Ethan. It was meticulously laid out, almost like a scientific experiment. Then her eyes fell to the bottom of the page, where Serena's elegant script had added a chilling postscript. "Ethan, half tablet, works in 20 minutes. Leo, quarter tablet, out for 3 hours minimum." The words seared themselves into Eleanor's brain. The precision, the cold, calculating tone. It was a blueprint for abuse, a systematic program to sedate her grandchildren. The implications hit her with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. Carlos, his face grim and etched with sorrow, looked at her. "I have 4 grandkids of my own, Eleanor," he said, his voice raw. "I know what a normal sleeping child looks like. And this isn't it. I think she's been drugging those babies." Eleanor felt the workbench behind her, cold and hard against her palm, and gripped it, trying to steady herself. Her entire body trembled. The realization of the gravity of the systematic abuse orchestrated by her son's wife, the mother of her grandsons, settled deep in her bones. The images, the bottle, the schedule, it all coalesced into an undeniable, horrifying truth. Serena wasn't just a difficult daughter-in-law, she was a danger to her own children. All those times the boys seemed unusually quiet, too compliant, too lethargic. It suddenly made terrible, sickening sense. Carlos, seeing her profound shock, spoke again, his voice firm. I knew this was serious. I made copies of everything, the photos, the schedule, even pictures of the bottle and its label. They're secured in my home safe. No one else knows. A wave of profound gratitude washed over Eleanor, momentarily eclipsing the horror. Carlos's foresight, his courage to act, might have just saved her grandsons' lives. A fierce, primal resolve solidified within her. She would protect them. She would retrieve them from this dangerous situation. There was no other option. A terrible clarity dawned upon her. She couldn't involve Marcus, not yet. He was completely under Serena's spell, blinded by her manipulations, or perhaps just unwilling to see the truth of his wife's darkness. He would dismiss her just as he had dismissed her concerns about the boys being too quiet or too well-behaved in the past. He would protect Serena, not his children, not his mother. Eleanor knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that she would have to do this alone. Her decision was instantaneous, unshakable. She couldn't wait, not another night. The thought of Ethan and Leo being subjected to another dose of that sedative, another night of unnatural forced sleep, was unbearable. She had to get them out of that house tonight. She looked at Carlos, her eyes brimming with a mixture of terror and immense gratitude. Carlos, she managed, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you. You may have saved their lives. The days following her visit to Carlos's car wash were an agonizing charade for Eleanor. Every conversation felt like a tightrope walk, every smile a monumental effort. Beneath her composed exterior, a storm raged. The images of her grandsons, unnaturally still in their beds, haunted her waking moments and invaded her fitful sleep. She knew she had to act, but she also knew she had to be careful. One wrong move, and Serena, with her cunning manipulation, could make her out to be the crazy, overbearing mother-in-law, sealing off any access to Ethan and Leo. So Eleanor forced herself to act normal, to laugh at Marcus's jokes, to listen to Serena's endless complaints about her busy schedule, all while her mind meticulously plotted her next steps. Then Marcus called. Mom, he began, his voice surprisingly cheerful. The boys have been asking for Grandma. How about you come over for dinner this Friday? A chill ran down Eleanor's spine, but she managed a warm tone. Of course, sweetheart. I'd love to. This was it, an opportunity to observe, to confirm, to gather more evidence. That Friday, Eleanor arrived at Marcus and Serena's meticulously tidy house. The familiar scent of lavender air freshener, always a little too strong, greeted her at the door. From the moment she stepped inside, a growing unease settled over her. Ethan, usually a whirlwind of energy, greeting her with a boisterous hug, barely lifted his head from the couch. His eyes, normally bright and inquisitive, had a distant, almost glassy quality. Leo, her youngest grandson, didn't run to her with his usual joyful squeal. Instead, he clung weakly to her leg, his grip surprisingly limp. Oh, they're just having a growth spurt, Serena explained with a dismissive wave of her hand, emerging from the kitchen, a forced smile on her lips. They've been so sleepy lately. Honestly, it's a blessing, a bit of peace and quiet for a change. The words, so casually delivered, now rang with a sinister undertone in Eleanor's ears. Growth spurts. Before Carlos's revelation, she might have accepted it, albeit with a nagging sense of doubt. Now it was a glaring red flag. She forced a smile and ruffled Ethan's hair, her fingers lingering, feeling the unnatural lethargy in his small body. Dinner was a tense affair, at least for Eleanor. She watched Serena like a hawk, every movement, every gesture. She noticed Serena making separate, almost furtive trips to the kitchen, one for Ethan's drink, then another for Leo's. Each time she carried a small, opaque plastic cup, shielding its contents with her body. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Eleanor's heightened senses picked up on the deliberate secrecy. When the drinks were presented, both boys took a reluctant sip before pushing them away. "I don't like it, Mama," Ethan mumbled, his voice unusually soft. Leo simply shook his head, a faint frown on his face. "Oh, nonsense, sweetie," Serena chirped, her tone firm, almost sharp beneath its veneer of sweetness. "Mama knows what's best. You need your juice," she encouraged them, almost insisted, until they had drunk a significant portion, though not entirely. Eleanor watched, her stomach churning, the scene playing out exactly as she had feared. After dinner, while Marcus was distracted with the dishwasher and Serena was making dessert, Eleanor slipped into the kitchen. Her eyes immediately landed on the sink. There, tucked away behind a stack of plates, were two small plastic cups, identical to the ones Serena had given the boys. She picked one up. At the very bottom, adhering to the plastic, was a faint, white, chalky residue. It looked like crushed powder that hadn't fully dissolved. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Just then, Marcus walked in. "Oh, those are from the boys' vitamins," he said casually, noticing her attention drawn to the cups. "Serena gives them to the kids. You know, natural sleep aids. Crushes them up and mixes them with juice so they'll drink them." He chuckled, completely oblivious to the terror mounting in his mother's chest. "Says they help them sleep through the night. Life-changing, really." Eleanor's mind raced. Natural sleep aids, crushed and mixed with juice? The words echoed Serena's chilling note. "Ethan, half tablet, works in 20 minutes. Leo, quarter tablet, out for 3 hours minimum." The chalky residue, the vitamins, it was all too clear. "Natural sleep aids," Eleanor managed, trying to keep her voice even. "What kind of natural sleep aids are these, Marcus? Did their pediatrician recommend them?" Marcus shrugged, still smiling. "Nah, not specifically. Serena just researched them online. She's really good at finding these sorts of things. She says they're herbal supplements, perfectly safe. Makes them more restful, apparently." "Restful," Eleanor repeated, the word tasting like ash in her mouth. She forced herself to numb. Yebin, to nod, to appear accepting, while inside a cold fury began to burn. True to Serena's chilling timetable, barely 20 minutes later, a heavy silence descended upon the house. Ethan and Leo, who had been listlessly watching cartoons, were now fast asleep. Eleanor walked quietly into their shared bedroom. There they were, lying in their beds, exactly as she had seen them in Carlos's photographs. Their small bodies were deeply, unnaturally still. Their breathing was shallow, almost imperceptible. The sweet innocence of childhood slumber was absent, replaced by a profound, drugged stupor. Serena, however, seemed utterly oblivious to the horror of the scene. She stood in the doorway, a look of serene satisfaction on her face. "Ah, finally," she sighed contentedly. "The house is so peaceful now. It's truly life-changing for me, having them sleep so soundly." Eleanor watched her, a knot of revulsion tightening in her stomach. Serena wasn't just a negligent mother. She was actively, deliberately drugging her own children for her convenience. The peace Serena spoke of was a drug-induced silence, purchased at the expense of her children's health and safety. A plan, swift and urgent, began to form in Eleanor's mind. She needed more time with the boys, away from Serena's constant influence, an opportunity to truly observe them, to see them without the effects of these vitamins. "You know," Eleanor said, turning to Serena with a forced grandmotherly smile, "you two always look so tired. Why don't I take the boys this weekend? Give you a little break. I haven't had them to myself in ages." The words tasted like betrayal, but Eleanor knew it was her only way in. Serena's face lit up, the suggestion clearly appealing. "Oh, Eleanor, that would be wonderful. Are you sure? You're such a lifesaver." "Absolutely," Eleanor confirmed, her voice steady despite the tempest raging within her. This wasn't just babysitting. This was reconnaissance. This was her chance to save her grandsons. The anniversary weekend arrived, cloaked in a deceptive innocence. Eleanor put on her brightest smile as Serena dropped off Ethan and Leo, complete with their overnight bags and a list of instructions that, thankfully, made no mention of any vitamins or sleep aids. Serena and Marcus, oblivious, drove off for their romantic getaway, leaving Eleanor with a heavy heart and a singular purpose: to observe her grandsons without the insidious influence of Serena's medication. From the moment the car pulled away, a transformation began. The house, usually quiet during their visits, now buzzed with life. Ethan, previously sluggish and glassy-eyed, sprang to life, a small tornado of boundless energy. He was everywhere at once, building towering block castles only to spectacularly knock them down, chasing the cat with gleeful abandon, his laughter echoing through the rooms. Leo, the younger one, was equally buoyant. His usual quiet demeanor melted away, replaced by giggles and playful antics. He babbled animatedly, pointing out everything that caught his attention, his small hands reaching for Eleanor's, pulling her into his world of imaginative play. The boys filled her home with a joyous, unadulterated energy that Eleanor hadn't seen in them for months, perhaps even years. Her heart, though overflowing with love for their vibrant spirits, also ached with a profound sorrow. This uninhibited joy, this natural exuberance, confirmed her worst fears. Serena had been systematically drugging them, altering their very personalities, stifling their natural development, all for her own convenience. The heartbreaking truth settled deep within her. Her grandsons had been stolen from her, and from themselves, by their own mother. Eleanor, despite her emotional turmoil, remained focused on her mission. She meticulously documented everything. Her phone, normally used for family photos, became a tool for evidence. She captured videos of Ethan and Leo playing with an energy that belied their earlier lethargy, their boisterous laughter filling the screen. She made detailed notes in a small pad, logging their mealtimes, their vibrant interactions, their natural healthy fatigue as evening approached. She wanted undeniable proof of their true nature, a stark contrast to the medicated stupor Serena imposed upon them. The next morning at breakfast, as sunlight streamed through her kitchen window, bathing the room in a warm glow, Ethan unexpectedly confided in her. He was munching on a pancake, his eyes, now bright and alert, fixed on his plate. "Grandma," he started, his voice soft, "sometimes I feel really weird after dinner at home." Eleanor paused, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. "Weird, sweetie? How do you mean?" He struggled to find the words, his brow furrowed in concentration. Like I'm far away. And my head feels fuzzy, and then I just go to sleep, even when I don't want to." A cold tremor went through Eleanor. Far away and fuzzy, it was exactly how a child might describe the disorienting effects of a sedative. Then Leo, chiming in with the unfiltered honesty of a 3-year-old, added, "I don't like the sleepy juice, Grandma. It makes my tummy hurt." He patted his little belly, looking up at her with innocent, trusting eyes. "Mommy says I need to drink it all, so I'm not loud." Eleanor's heart shattered. The sleepy juice. There it was, innocent, undeniable confirmation from the victims themselves. They had been trying to communicate their distress, their discomfort all this time, in their own childish ways, but no one, not even their father, had truly listened. The realization hit her with sickening force. These pure, innocent boys had been forced to endure this, silently, day after day. Armed with her observations, the boys' heartfelt confessions, and Carlos's compelling evidence, Eleanor knew she couldn't delay. She needed professional advice. She immediately called her longtime physician, Dr. Rossi, a kind, astute man who had seen her through many of life's challenges. He fit her in for an emergency appointment that very afternoon, understanding the urgency in her voice. In the sterile confines of Dr. Rossi's office, Eleanor laid out her findings. The prescription bottle of Clonazepam, the chilling schedule, the clinical photographs, her detailed notes, and the videos of her grandsons, vibrant and then subdued. She recounted Ethan's faraway feeling and Leo's sleepy juice complaint. Rossi listened intently, his expression growing increasingly grave. When Eleanor finished, he picked up the Clonazepam bottle and examined the label. "Eleanor," he said, his voice quiet but firm, "Clonazepam is a powerful benzodiazepine. It's a central nervous system depressant. It is absolutely not prescribed for children, especially not for sustained use like this." He leaned forward, his elbows on his desk. "Long-term administration, even in small doses, can have severe consequences for a developing child. It can affect cognitive development, memory, their natural sleep patterns, and it carries a significant risk of dependency. For a child of Ethan's age, and certainly for Leo, these doses could be not only incredibly dangerous, but also highly addictive. Then came the words that twisted Eleanor's gut. Based on what you've observed, their energy returning when they haven't had the medication, their complaints of feeling weird or having a tummy ache, it's very likely they are experiencing withdrawal symptoms when they are not medicated. Their bodies have become accustomed to the drug. The confirmation struck Eleanor like a physical blow, a cold, hard truth that solidified her fear into a terrifying reality. Her grandsons, her precious, innocent grandsons, were going through withdrawal. They were addicted to a drug given to them by their own mother. The depth of Serena's cruelty was unfathomable. Dr. Rossi met her gaze, his eyes filled with concern. Eleanor, this is not something you can handle alone. You need to get these children somewhere safe immediately. And then you need to call Child Protective Services. This is child abuse, pure and simple. Driving home, the weight of his words settled upon Eleanor. Child Protective Services. It meant tearing her family apart, exposing her son's wife, potentially severing Marcus from her and the boys. It meant a public, painful battle. But as she gripped the steering wheel, she remembered Ethan's faraway eyes and Leo's sleepy juice. The choice, agonizing as it was clear. There was no alternative. She had to save them, no matter the cost. Eleanor sat at her kitchen table, Dr. Rossi's stern advice echoing in her mind. Get them somewhere safe. Call Child Protective Services. The words were simple, direct, yet the path they laid out was fraught with peril. How could she remove Ethan and Leo from their home without alerting Serena, without sending her into a paranoid frenzy that might cause her to disappear with the boys, making them even harder to find and protect? The thought was a cold knot in her stomach. She needed a legitimate reason for extended custody, something Serena would readily agree to without suspicion. As if a higher power was listening, her phone rang. It was Marcus, his voice sounding utterly exhausted. Mom, he began, a weary sigh escaping him. You wouldn't believe it. Serena's mother just broke her hip. It's bad. Serena needs to fly out tonight to be with her for a few days, maybe even a week, to help with the arrangements. I'm swamped at work and can't take time off. Is there any way you could possibly take the boys for us? Just until Serena gets back? Eleanor felt a surge of immense relief, so powerful it almost buckled her knees. This was it, a legitimate, unassailable reason. A divine opportunity handed to her on a silver platter. Serena's mother's broken hip, while unfortunate, was Eleanor's unexpected window of opportunity, the precise opening she had been praying for. Of course, sweetheart, she exclaimed, ejecting a lightness into her voice she didn't feel. Don't you worry about a thing. Bring them over this afternoon. I'd love to have them. She fought to keep her voice steady, to sound like the doting grandmother, not the strategist plotting an intervention. As soon as she hung up, a chilling realization washed over her. She still had to be incredibly careful. If Serena sensed even a hint of suspicion, if she caught wind of Eleanor's true intentions, she might still find a way to take the boys and vanish, making her plan infinitely harder, potentially impossible. Every step needed to be meticulously planned, every action disguised under the cloak of familial duty. Her first call was to Dr. Rossi. They're coming this afternoon, doctor, she explained, her voice low and urgent. I have them for at least a few days, maybe a week. Can we get them in for a full medical evaluation as soon as possible? Dr. Rossi understood immediately. Bring them in Friday morning, Eleanor, he said without hesitation. I'll clear my schedule. We'll do a full workup, blood tests, everything we need, make sure they're safe. Next, Eleanor contacted her trusted neighbor, Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim was a retired kindergarten teacher, a woman of sharp intellect and boundless kindness, whose calm demeanor belied a fierce moral compass. Eleanor had always valued her friendship and advice. Mrs. Kim, Eleanor began, her voice trembling slightly, I need to tell you something, and I need your help. It's about Ethan and Leo. She recounted the horrifying discovery, the pills, the schedule, the boys' confessions, Dr. Rossi's diagnosis. Mrs. Kim listened in stunned silence, her face paling with each revelation. When Eleanor finished, a look of profound sorrow and outrage settled on her features. Those poor babies, she whispered, her voice laced with pain. That woman, how could she? She paused, then met Eleanor's gaze with unwavering resolve. Eleanor, whatever you need, I'm here. As a friend, as a witness, as anything. Those children deserve to be safe. Her unwavering support was a balm to Eleanor's frayed nerves. A few hours later, Marcus and Serena's SUV pulled into Eleanor's driveway. Serena, usually so composed, looked genuinely distracted, her face etched with concern for her mother. The urgency of her family emergency seemed to override her usual meticulous attention to the boys. This was good. This meant less scrutiny. As the boys, Ethan still a whirlwind and Leo clinging shyly to Marcus, were ushered into the house, Serena handed Eleanor a small, opaque plastic bottle. "Oh, and here are their vitamins," she said, almost as an afterthought. "2 tablets for Ethan, 1 for Leo, crushed and mixed with juice every night before bed. And if they're particularly energetic, feel free to give them a little extra. It really helps them wind down." Eleanor took the bottle, her skin crawling as her fingers touched the smooth plastic. This was it. The very medication Serena had used to systematically drug her grandsons, now in her possession. She forced a reassuring smile. "Of course, dear. Don't you worry. I've got everything under control here. Just focus on your mother." Marcus gave Eleanor a grateful hug, while Serena offered a fleeting, distracted kiss on the cheek. With final instructions about bedtime stories and snack preferences, they were off, speeding away to the airport. Eleanor stood at her front door watching their taillights disappear down the street, the vitamin bottle clutched in her hand. A profound sense of relief, intertwined with a chilling determination, washed over her. She had them. The boys were safe for now. Her first act was to take the bottle and hide it deep within her medicine cabinet, a piece of crucial evidence secured. Then she turned to the boys. Ethan and Leo were already engrossed in a cartoon, their small bodies vibrating with unspent energy. Eleanor knew she couldn't simply let them wonder why the sleepy juice wasn't coming. She had to explain gently and truthfully what was happening. She sat on the floor with them, gathering them close. "Boys," she began, her voice soft and steady, "Grandma needs to tell you something important. Those special vitamins that Mommy gives you, they aren't actually very good for you." Ethan looked up, his eyes wide. Leo, sensing the seriousness in her tone, snuggled closer. "They have made you very sleepy and sometimes a little confused," Eleanor continued, choosing her words carefully. "They are not going to help you grow big and strong like you should. So we're not going to take them anymore." She smoothed Ethan's hair, then Leo's. "Now, because your bodies have gotten used to them, you might feel a little different over the next few days. Maybe a bit grumpy or your tummy might hurt a little. But Grandma is here, and we're going to get you feeling much, much better." Ethan looked confused, but Leo nodded slowly, as if understanding. Eleanor pulled them into a tight hug, a silent promise forming in her heart. She would protect them, guide them through this, and ensure they never had to feel far away again. If you're finding this story as shocking as I did, please like, share, and subscribe to follow along. You won't believe what happens next. The first night at Eleanor's house was rough, exactly as she had anticipated. Without the sleepy juice, the boys struggled to settle. Ethan, usually so quiet at bedtime at home, tossed and turned, his small body restless. He whimpered in his sleep, mumbling words Eleanor couldn't quite discern, clearly experiencing nightmares. Leo, though less agitated, frequently woke, crying softly for comfort. Eleanor spent much of the night sitting by their beds, stroking their hair, offering whispered reassurances, a glass of water, or simply her calming presence. It was exhausting, but as she watched their natural, undrugged agitation, Eleanor felt a strange sense of relief. This was normal. This was what children did. This was a return to their true selves, however difficult. By Thursday evening, the transformation was nothing short of remarkable. The subtle signs of withdrawal had begun to recede, replaced by a vibrant resurgence of their natural spirits. Ethan, who had been quiet and compliant for so long, was now a whirlwind of activity, his mind buzzing with questions and observations. "Grandma, why does the sky turn orange at sunset?" he'd ask, then immediately launch into an elaborate theory involving dragons. He built intricate block towers, demanding Eleanor participate, his voice filled with laughter. Leo, no longer clinging or shy, was truly laughing again, a bubbling, infectious sound that filled the house with joy. He chased Ethan, shrieking with delight, or brought Eleanor his favorite picture books, demanding animated stories with exaggerated voices for each character. They played for hours, building blanket forts in the living room, wrestling playfully on the rug, and demanding stories until their little voices grew hoarse and their eyelids heavy with genuine, healthy fatigue. Eleanor, armed with her phone and notepad, meticulously documented every detail. She took dozens of photos and videos, capturing their bright eyes, their unrestrained laughter, their natural curiosity. She filled pages of her notebook with observations on their behavior, their renewed energy levels, their healthy appetites, and their increasingly longer, more peaceful sleep. This wasn't just observation, it was a testament to the boys reclaiming their childhood. Her trusted neighbor, Mrs. Kim, came over both days, ostensibly to check in, but truly to witness the change. She too took her own discreet notes. Watching the boys race around the yard, kicking a soccer ball with newfound vigor, Mrs. Kim turned to Eleanor, tears welling in her eyes. "Eleanor," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "it's like watching flowers bloom after a long winter. Those boys are coming back to life, right before our eyes." Her words affirmed Eleanor's conviction. Friday morning arrived, crisp and clear. Eleanor took Ethan and Leo to Dr. Rossi's office. The boys, full of their usual morning energy, chatted animatedly with the nurses, completely at ease. De Rossi, maintaining a warm, professional demeanor, performed a thorough examination. He listened to their hearts, checked their reflexes, and with gentle distraction, took blood samples, explaining each step in an age-appropriate way. Afterward, while the boys were happily coloring in the waiting room with Mrs. Kim, Dr. Rossi called Eleanor into his private office. He closed the door, his expression serious. "Eleanor," he began, "what you've documented here, Carlos's evidence, your observations, the boys' own reports, and now my preliminary examination, it's compelling. This is clearly a case of systematic medication abuse." He nodded gravely. "The blood tests will give us definitive proof of the clonazepam in their systems. But clinically, the boys are showing classic signs of recovering from benzodiazepine dependency. Their bodies are relearning how to function without the drug." Eleanor felt a fresh wave of grief, followed by a fierce determination. "Will they be okay, doctor? Long term?" She offered a reassuring smile. "Eleanor, children are remarkably resilient. The fact that the abuse has stopped now and they're in a safe, loving environment is crucial. Their brains are still developing, and with proper care, I am confident they will recover completely. They might need some emotional support to process what happened, but physically and cognitively, the prognosis is very good." His words were a lifeline to Eleanor's weary soul. That afternoon, Eleanor made the long-dreaded call. With a deep breath, she dialed Child Protective Services. A calm, professional voice answered, and Eleanor, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, began to recount the story. Within a few hours, Miss Brenda Stone, a caseworker with a kind but no-nonsense demeanor, arrived at Eleanor's doorstep. Miss Stone listened patiently, her gaze unwavering as Eleanor laid out all the evidence. Carlos's original findings, the prescription bottle, the schedule, Dr. Rossi's medical assessment, and Eleanor's copious notes and videos detailing the boy's recovery. Ms. Stone reviewed each piece meticulously, her expression unchanging until she finally looked up, her lips a thin line. "Mrs. Vance," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "what you have here is substantial, very substantial." She then delivered the stark warning Eleanor had anticipated. "I must be clear, Mrs. Vance. Initiating this process will be incredibly difficult. It will tear your family apart, at least temporarily. There will be investigations, court dates, and a great deal of emotional distress for everyone involved, especially for your son." Eleanor walked to her living room window and looked out. Ethan and Leo were in the backyard, laughing as they meticulously built a sandbox castle, their faces alight with unadulterated joy. This, she thought, was their normal. This was their childhood, reclaimed. She turned back to Ms. Stone, her conviction firm, unwavering. "They're worth it," Eleanor said, her voice clear and strong. "They're worth everything. Ms. Stone nodded, a flicker of admiration in her eyes. Given the evidence and your clear dedication to their well-being, I can offer you temporary guardianship immediately while the investigation proceeds. It would ensure their stability and safety during this turbulent time. Eleanor didn't hesitate. Yes, she breathed, the word a heartfelt affirmation. Absolutely, yes. Eleanor was preparing dinner, a simple meal the boys enjoyed, when her phone rang. It was Marcus, his voice sounding harried. "Moms," he said, "Serena's decided she can't stand being away from the boys another night. Her mother is stable, and she's anxious to get home. We're flying back tonight. We'll be there around 6 p.m. Saturday, not Sunday as planned." Eleanor's blood ran cold. Saturday evening, that was less than 24 hours away. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Their world was about to explode, and she had mere hours to prepare. There was no time to lose. She immediately called Ms. Brenda Stone, the CPS caseworker, relaying the urgent change in plans. Ms. Stone assured her she would expedite the process. Saturday afternoon, as the golden light of the declining sun filtered through her living room window, Ms. Brenda Stone arrived, accompanied by another younger caseworker, and to Eleanor's surprise, a uniformed police officer. The sight of the officer sent a fresh wave of anxiety through her, but she knew this was necessary. This was protection. Eleanor called Ethan and Leo in from the backyard, where they were happily engaged in a fierce battle with imaginary dragons. "Boys," she said, her voice gentle, trying to keep any hint of her own trepidation from her tone, "some people here need to talk to us." Miss Brenda Stone, her demeanor reassuringly calm, knelt down to be at eye level with the children. "Hi, Ethan. Hi, Leo," she said, offering a warm smile. "My name is Miss Stone, and this is my friend. We work with families to make sure all children are safe and happy. You're not in trouble, sweethearts. Not at all. We just want to talk to you about some things and help you." What followed was a heartbreaking hour. Ms. Stone, with practiced ease and gentle questioning, interviewed Ethan and Leo separately. First Leo, then Ethan. Eleanor watched from a distance, her heart clenching with every innocent revelation. Leo, with his still developing 5-year-old vocabulary, did his best to articulate his experiences. He described the sleepy medicine that Mama gave him, making his head feel fuzzy and making him so tired. He pointed to his tummy, recalling how it hurt sometimes. And then the most poignant detail. "Yesterday feels far away," he'd whispered, his small brow furrowed in confusion, confirming the disorienting effects of the drug. Ethan, older and more articulate, provided an even more chilling account. He described feeling weird, like I was watching everything happen to someone else, but it wasn't really me. He spoke of Mama insisting he take the vitamins even when he said no, and how he just wanted to play but couldn't. His description of detachment, of observing his own life from a distance, painted a stark picture of the drug's profound psychological impact. Eleanor's eyes met the caseworkers, a shared understanding of the gravity of the situation passing between them. By 4 p.m., the interviews were complete and the paperwork was finalized. Eleanor signed documents confirming her temporary custody of Ethan and Leo. Crucially, an emergency restraining order was put in place, preventing Serena from having any unsupervised contact with the children. The police officer, after confirming all details, stayed, prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The minutes dragged on, each one an eternity. Eleanor felt a nervous energy thrumming through her. She tried to appear composed, sipping tea, playing a board game with the boys, but her heart hammered in her chest, a relentless drumbeat of apprehension. At precisely 6:15 p.m., the sound of a car crunching on the gravel driveway announced their arrival. Eleanor took a deep breath, steeling herself. Ms. Stone and the other caseworker positioned themselves discreetly in the living room, ready. The police officer stood near the front door, a silent, imposing presence. Eleanor, with the boys safely in the kitchen with the junior caseworker, walked into the living room to meet Marcus and Serena. The front door opened and Marcus entered first, carrying a small carry-on bag, followed by Serena, who looked tired but impeccably dressed. Their initial expressions were relief at being home, quickly replaced by confusion at the sight of Ms. Stone, the other caseworker, and especially the uniformed officer. "Mom, what's going on?" Marcus asked. his gaze sweeping over the unfamiliar faces and then landing on the official-looking documents neatly arranged on Eleanor's coffee table. He picked one up, his brow furrowing as he read the bold print. His face paled. "Emergency custody order?" he stammered, his voice laced with disbelief. Eleanor took another deep breath, her own voice steady despite the quake in her hands. She looked directly at her son, then at Serena, whose composure was already beginning to crack. "Marcus," she began, the words tasting like ash in her mouth, "I found evidence that Serena has been drugging the boys systematically. For months." Marcus's reaction was a rapid descent from disbelief to anger. "What are you talking about, Mom? Drugging? That's insane. Serena would never." He turned to Serena, his eyes pleading for an explanation, for a denial that would make sense of this madness. Serena, ever the actress, maintained a perfect mask of wounded innocence. Her eyes widened, glistening with feigned hurt. "Eleanor, how could you accuse me of such a thing? I only gave them their natural vitamins. You know how much they help them sleep peacefully." Her voice was soft, laced with an injured tone designed to elicit sympathy. Eleanor met her gaze, her own unwavering. The time for pretense was over. "Clonazepam isn't a vitamin, Serena." The words hung in the air, cold and definitive. For the first time, Serena's perfect mask slipped. Her eyes, which had been so full of feigned indignation, flickered with surprise, then fear. A faint tremor ran through her. She had underestimated Eleanor, and now the truth was out. Serena, caught in Eleanor's direct gaze and the unyielding truth, flinched. Her usual bravado crumbled, replaced by a desperate, fleeting attempt at denial. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, her voice thin and lacking all conviction. The lie was transparent, even to Marcus, who watched her with dawning confusion. Marcus, however, was still rooted in disbelief, caught between the shock of Eleanor's accusation and the familiar loyalty to his wife. "Mom, what is this? Are you losing your mind? Serena is the mother of my children. She would never do something like that." His voice was rising, tinged with a bewildered anger aimed at Eleanor. Just then, Mrs. Brenda Stone, the other caseworker, and the police officer stepped forward, moving from their discreet positions further into the living room. The presence of official authority solidified the harsh reality of the situation, making it impossible for Marcus to dismiss it as a hysterical accusation. Ms. Brenda Stone, calm and professional, introduced herself. "Mrs. Vance, I am Brenda Stone with Child Protective Services. We are here to conduct an investigation into allegations of medication abuse concerning Ethan and Leo." Her voice was devoid of judgment, but utterly firm. Marcus's face, already pale, turned ashen. He looked from Ms. Stone to the police officer, then to Eleanor, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and confusion. "This is a mistake," he choked out, his voice cracking. "My wife would never hurt our kids." He tried to gather Serena into a protective embrace, but she remained stiff, her gaze fixed on the floor. Brenda Stone, without a preamble, began to lay out the evidence systematically and dispassionately. She presented the small plastic bag containing the clonazepam bottle, the label with Serena's name prominent. She then displayed the unsettling clinical photographs of Ethan and Leo, unnaturally sedated in their beds. Next came the folded, handwritten schedule, Serena's neat script detailing the dosages and their effects. Darrazi's medical evaluation, confirming the boy's dependency and the dangers of the drug for children, was summarized clearly. Finally, Miss Stone gently but firmly recounted the boys' own heartbreaking statements, their innocent descriptions of feeling fuzzy and far away in the sleepy juice. Marcus's world crumbled with each piece of evidence. He stared at the photographs of his own sons, their faces slack and pale, a profound sense of horror washing over him. His eyes scanned Serena's handwriting on the schedule, the cold, calculating instructions for drugging his children. He recognized the bottle, the vitamins he'd been told they were taking. The overwhelming proof was undeniable. The woman he loved, the mother of his children, had systematically poisoned them. The realization hit him with a visceral force, knocking the air from his lungs. His protective stance towards Serena evaporated, replaced by a look of utter devastation and betrayal. Serena, seeing that denial was no longer an option, that the evidence was too compelling, shifted tactics. Her face, still pale, hardened slightly. Okay, fine, she snapped, her feigned sweetness gaining, replaced by a defensive snarl. Yes, I gave them something to help them sleep, but it wasn't to hurt them. I was overwhelmed. You, she accused, turning sharply to Marcus. You're always at work. I'm home alone with them all day, every day. It's exhausting. And other mothers do it all the time. Her voice escalated, a desperate attempt to deflect blame. Marcus, his face contorted in a mask of horror and rage, took a step back from her. How long, he demanded, his voice trembling with a fury Eleanor had rarely seen. How long have you been drugging our children? The realization that his own children had been drugged right under his nose by their mother was unfathomable. Before Serena could answer, Eleanor interjected, her voice cutting through the rising tension. She still held the bottle Serena had given her, the one she'd retrieved from her medicine cabinet. And where, Serena? Eleanor asked, holding up the prescription bottle for all to see. Did you get the clonazepam? Serena hesitated, her eyes darting nervously, her shoulders slumped in defeat. It was my own prescription, she finally confessed, her voice barely a whisper. For my anxiety, I just broke it down for them. It's not like I was trying to hurt them. I was just trying to cope. Her words were a pathetic plea for understanding. But the damage was done. The room erupted. Marcus let out a guttural roar, a sound of pure agony and betrayal. Your own prescription? You gave them your medication? He lunged towards Serena, a raw, protective anger for his sons replacing all other emotions. The police officer, anticipating the escalation, immediately stepped forward, placing a hand on Marcus's chest, gently but firmly restraining him. Serena Vance, the officer stated, his voice calm and authoritative, but unmistakable. You are under arrest for child endangerment and felony child abuse. He moved towards her, pulling out handcuffs. Serena gasped, her eyes wide with shock. Arrest? What? No, this is ridiculous. I'm a good mother. I was just tired. She protested loudly, her words echoing through the suddenly silent house as the cold click of the handcuffs sealed her fate. She was led away, still protesting, still claiming innocence, still trying to blame everyone but herself. Marcus stood there watching his wife being led away, his face a landscape of devastation. His gaze found Eleanor, his eyes vacant, filled with a pain that mirrored her own. Oh God, Mom, he whispered, his voice broken. What has she done to my boys? In the chaotic aftermath of Serena's arrest, Eleanor's home became a sanctuary, a place of fragile healing. Marcus, a man utterly broken by betrayal and guilt, moved into Eleanor's spare bedroom. He took an immediate leave from work, dedicating himself entirely to the boys' recovery. The initial shock gave way to a profound sense of self-recrimination. He spent hours, often late into the night, replaying memories, his face etched with regret. All the signs I missed, Mom, he'd whisper, pacing Eleanor's living room. Ethan falling asleep at Christmas dinner. Leo being so quiet all the time. I just thought they were good kids, or tired. I was so blind. His guilt was a heavy shroud, weighing down the entire house. The road to healing was long and arduous. Dr. Olivia Reed, a highly respected specialist in childhood trauma, was brought in to conduct psychological evaluations. Her report, when it finally arrived, was devastating. It confirmed the profound impact of systematic medication abuse. Ethan, the older and longer affected child, exhibited significant memory gaps, particularly around events when he was likely drugged. He also showed signs of confusion, difficulty regulating emotions, and pervasive anxiety. Leo, while showing similar symptoms, displayed them less intensely, a grim indication that his exposure had been more recent, though no less damaging. The report painted a stark picture of two young minds struggling to process years of chemical suppression and emotional neglect. As part of the ongoing investigation, police executed a search warrant on Serena and Marcus's house. What they discovered shook Eleanor and Marcus to their core. A series of detailed journals, meticulously kept by Serena, dating back 3 years. They were hidden in a locked drawer in her home office, a chilling testament to her calculated deception. Ms. Brenda Stone personally brought the journals to Eleanor, her expression grim. Mrs. Vance, she warned, her voice unusually subdued, these are very disturbing. You and Marcus should read them together. With trembling hands, Eleanor opened the first journal. What she read sent shivers down her spine. The initial entries were mundane complaints about normal childhood behavior. Ethan's boundless energy, Leo's occasional tantrums. But gradually, insidiously, the tone shifted. The entries evolved from complaints to calculated observations, then to precise medication logs. Serena documented specific dosages, the time of administration, and the resulting peaceful hours. She experimented with delivery methods, noting which juices best masked the bitter taste of the crushed pills. The most sickening detail was her consistent notation of how activities, from quiet reading to long car rides, became much more pleasant when the boys were subdued. She even documented their early withdrawal symptoms as simply them acting out or being difficult. Marcus read over Eleanor's shoulder, his face a horrifying mask of disbelief, horror, and incandescent rage. He saw his wife's handwriting, her methodical approach, her almost clinical detachment. She was proud of it, he snarled, his voice raw with pain, proud of how clever she was, how she managed to control them. The journals confirmed Serena's premeditated intent, her cold, calculating decision to drug her own children for her convenience. There were entries discussing escalating dosages and even mentions of researching stronger ones online, revealing a chilling plan to continue and intensify the abuse. Dr. Olivia Reed, in a subsequent meeting, explained the profound psychological control Serena had exerted. Benzodiazepines, especially during critical developmental stages, can have permanent consequences on developing brains, she stated, her voice grave. They disrupt natural neural pathways, affecting memory, emotional regulation, and cognitive function. The children's brains essentially learn to rely on the external chemical to feel normal. To illustrate the damage, Reed showed them brain scans, comparing them to scans of healthy children. Ethan's scans revealed decreased activity in regions associated with memory and emotional processing. While the physical dependency can be overcome, Dr. Reed concluded, the psychological impact, the trauma of knowing their mother did this, and the effects on their developing sense of self and trust may be even more significant than the medical. Further investigation by the police unearthed even more disturbing details. Serena's extensive online search history revealed her frequent visits to obscure forums dedicated to managing difficult children and natural sleep solutions, where she clearly gleaned information, though the specific drug names were usually coded. But the most shocking revelation came from text messages recovered from Serena's phone. They exchanged with her own mother. Not only did Serena's mother know about the drugging, she actively encouraged it. Messages like, "Just give them a bit more, dear. They'll quiet down. You deserve your peace. And I did it with you sometimes when you were a terror. It worked wonders," revealed a generational pattern of abuse, a chilling justification for Serena's actions. It wasn't just Serena. An entire lineage seemed to validate this horrific practice. Eleanor looked at Marcus, his face now a mask of utter despair. The betrayal was deeper, more ingrained than they could have ever imagined. 6 months had passed since that chaotic evening, and life in Eleanor's home had settled into a rhythm of gentle healing and rediscovered joy. The morning sun streamed into her kitchen as she flipped pancakes, their sweet aroma filling the air. Ethan, now almost 9, chattered excitedly about his latest school project, while Leo, vibrant and full of mischief, bounced on his seat, eager for his breakfast. Marcus, his face still bearing the faint lines of past pain, but now imbued with a quiet strength, sat at the table, a gentle smile on his face as he watched his sons. This was their new normal, a life built on truth and love, reclaimed from the wreckage of Serena's deception. The legal proceedings had moved swiftly, driven by the overwhelming evidence. Serena, facing insurmountable proof, had eventually pled guilty to 2 counts of child endangerment. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison with the possibility of supervised visitation with the boys only if she was paroled and deemed psychologically fit, a distant and unlikely prospect. Marcus, without hesitation, had filed for divorce, a painful but necessary step. Serena's parental rights were swiftly terminated, and Eleanor, with Marcus's full consent and insistence, was formally named the boys' legal guardian, a testament to her unwavering commitment to their safety and well-being. Ethan and Leo were not just surviving, they were thriving. Dr. Olivia Reed's latest brain scans showed remarkable improvement in the areas previously affected, a testament to the resilience of childhood and the power of a safe, nurturing environment. Academically, Ethan was excelling, his curiosity unbridled. Socially, Leo blossomed, making new friends and radiating the unrestrained joy of a child finally free to be himself. Their laughter, once muted and rare, now filled Eleanor's home with a constant, beautiful melody. One afternoon, a letter arrived from Serena's mother, requesting visitation with the boys. Marcus, holding the letter with a look of grim determination, crumpled it without a moment's hesitation. "The cycle stops here," he stated, his voice firm, echoing the generational abuse revealed in Serena's journals. He had made a conscious decision to break free from the toxic patterns that had permeated Serena's family, and by extension had threatened to engulf his own. Eleanor often found solace in simple moments. At Riverside Park, she watched Ethan and Leo race their bikes down the winding path, their small figures a blur of speed and happiness. The wind ruffled their hair, their faces alight with pure, unadulterated joy. A profound peace settled over her. This was the pure joy of childhood, finally reclaimed, a precious gift she had fought so hard to restore. Later that evening, as they shared a quiet dinner, Marcus revealed his plans. "I'm going to sell the house, Mom," he said, his voice resolute. "Too many memories, too much pain. I want a fresh start, for us." He looked at Eleanor, a new light in his eyes. "I've been looking at places closer to you, a few blocks away maybe, so we can be a real family again." Eleanor's heart swelled with gratitude. He was choosing healing, choosing family, choosing a future free from the shadow of the past. Carlos, her loyal confidant, still checked in regularly. "How are those little fighters doing?" he'd ask, his voice warm with genuine concern. Eleanor would update him, sharing stories of the boys' progress and Marcus's slow but steady healing. "He's gained so much strength, Carlos," she'd often say. "He's becoming the father they always needed, but couldn't have." Eleanor cherished a new family photo displayed proudly on her mantelpiece. Marcus, his arms around Ethan and Leo, all three of them beaming, their smiles genuine and unburdened. It was a normal moment earned through immense struggle, a stark contrast to the chemically controlled existence Serena had imposed. This was what true family looked like. After all the chaos, all the pain. News filtered through that Serena had been moved to a psychiatric facility within the prison system. She was undergoing intensive treatment, a consequence of the psychological evaluations conducted during her incarceration. Eleanor felt no pity, only a cold gratitude. Gratitude that Serena was getting the help she desperately needed. And more importantly, gratitude that she could no longer harm children. One afternoon, Ethan presented Eleanor with a drawing. It was a simple stick figure rendition of their family. Him, Leo, Daddy, and Grandma, all holding hands, a bright sun smiling down. "And when Daddy moves closer," he announced, his eyes shining with excitement, "we're going to get a big fluffy one." It was a vision of a future, uncomplicated and filled with innocent dreams. Eleanor reflected on Marcus's journey. Dr. Olivia Reed was not only working with the boys, but also with Marcus, helping him navigate the complexities of parenting after such a profound betrayal. He was learning to balance the natural desire to protect with the need to allow them freedom to grow, understanding the difference between healthy structure and the harmful restriction Serena had imposed. He was learning to be present, truly present, in their lives. Leo, during a quiet moment, looked up at Eleanor, his small hand in hers. "I'm glad the sleepy medicine is gone, Grandma," he said softly. "I want to feel like myself." Ethan, overhearing, nodded in agreement. "Mama used to say we were too much trouble," he added, his voice low, "but you and Daddy say we're just right." Eleanor pulled them both close, tears blurring her vision. Protecting family, she realized, often meant making the hardest choices, tearing apart what you thought was whole to build something truly authentic. They had lost Serena, but they had gained truth, a genuine, loving family, and the priceless gift of peaceful, natural sleep for her grandsons. That, Eleanor knew, was the sweetest victory of all.